A very good afternoon and thanks for joining us. This is NTV at 1 on this Monday morning with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you live from the Nation Centre. As always, plenty lined up for you. We'll bring you the very latest with Laila Mohammed regarding the meeting that took place between stakeholders on the issue of education and when students are set to go back to school. Well, we don't know yet, but what we do know is that teachers are expected back to school on Monday, September 28th to prepare for a possible reopening of schools at a date to be announced by the head of state. This was the main talking point after education stakeholders met this morning to deliberate on the modalities of going back to school. But as Laila Mohammed informs us, a resumption date is yet to be announced. Laila, we still don't have the answer that we've all been waiting for.
Well, Smriti, the question of when the children will be back in the classroom is still hanging in the balance. The jury is still out on that matter. The Ministry of Education now insists that the possible dates that have been released within media platforms are just but confusing parents across the country, and this is only creating more tension amongst many players in this sector that has seen students away from the classroom physically for the last 7 months or so. But that indication of telling teachers to go back to schools on the 28th, which is Monday next week, is a sign that the possibility of schools reopening before the January proposed date is now a reality. Children now have to prepare themselves mentally and physically to go back to the classroom as the Ministry of Education now plans for the timetable and how things will happen. Possibly they will be looking at the classes that are expected to do the examinations. They might be given the highest priority, but this timetable will be delivered to the public as and when the ministry says it is fit. But for the moment, let's listen in to Professor George Magoha and TSC CEO Nancy Macharia.
And we are therefore now asking our teachers to report back to schools on Monday, the 28th of September, to prepare for the eventual opening of schools.
In terms of the basic education, which is where you have become the experts, you are telling me what we are doing. You are telling me what we are doing. But I want to tell you that this morning we have agreed on a timetable which you will only get if you are corrupt and you should not be alive. Because the right person to give that information is not even myself. I will take the recommendations to the larger committee, and the larger committee will look at it, and if they agree, then we shall send it for concurrence to the person who will then announce to you when the schools will reopen.
So Smriti, as the good professor himself says, Magoha, son of Magoha, that date exactly will be announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta, or if he delegates that duty to the CS of Education himself, then the public will be in a position to know when students are expected back to school. But he spoke on various issues. The whole issue around the desks that are being provided, he says, well, some people in the sector say that this is not a priority. He has been to every corner of the country and he has realized there are some schools who are in dire need of desks. So the 1.9 billion Kenya shillings that was funded by the national government towards that project will continue. And he says as long as he is the CS of Education, then that money will go to the right channels that it has been intended for. He's also speaking about the TVET education, and he says the decision by the ministry to change around some principles of this technical facilities is within line of the rules of government, and he says no fair play will be part of this execution as well as other issues. So for the moment, basic education will now go back to when and where the president will announce this. But he also says that for the university education, those who are doing their sciences and who are in their final year of schooling, then they will be allowed back into their laboratories to do the physical education that they need to. But at the moment, the whole cloud of uncertainty continues for parents parents, but as teachers go back to school to lay down the best laid plans for when to resume classes, we will be here to get information for you, as well as when exactly COVID-19 will have ended for students to be able to go back to class. Smriti.
All right, Leila, thanks very much indeed for that update. Do stay tuned with us on NTV. As Leila said, we'll be bringing you all the relevant updates as and when we get them. Now, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentist Union, along with the Kenya Union of Domestic Hotels, Educational Institutions, Hospitals and Allied Workers, and the Kenya National Union of Nurses, are addressing the press about an impending strike by all unionizable staff of the Kenyatta National Hospital. Our reporter Naoma Sampao is at the KNH, but for now, let's listen in to what's being said.
SRC must go. SRC must go. SRC must go. Sisi tutagoma tarehe 28 na tutagoma sana. If by Friday they have not given us a letter approving the payment of those salaries, we shall go to the streets na tutaenda pale George Williamson's house and we will sing. And we shall scream, and we shall chase them away. Wakuje wafanye kazi Kenyatta National. Comrades, power! Help me welcome GS Kainan, Comrade Seth Panyako. Comrade power! Comrade power! Comrade power! 7A! Yes, sir! 7A! Yes, sir! 7A! Yes, sir! Pop! Sitakuwa na maneno mengi ya kusema, hii ugonjwa iko kidogo tu. Haijafikia mimi. I want to state categorically that myself plus my colleagues, the trade union leadership for health workers in Kenyatta, together with the workers of Kenyatta National Hospital, have made a decision that they must fight for their rights. And the person or the organ within the government that thinks that is above parliament. Parliament passed the budget and it became an act of parliament, and this money was given to Kenyatta National Hospital. The only way for this act to be amended is SRC to go to parliament and amend that act. But the money is here. The money must be given to the workers without any delay. So within 7 days, we want SRC to categorically write a letter withdrawing that love letter they had written before and allowing Kenyatta National Hospital Board to spend the money on payment of the salary for the workers for 7A. Tunakubaliana? Tunakubaliana? Tunaambia SRC, sisi hatuchezi na tutakuja huko mahali mnajificha huko, mnakaa ofisini huko, mnaandika barua and you want to start another evaluation. Ile pesa ambayo mnauliza Kenyatta niwaambie siri. It is the money that SRC gave to civil servants in 2016. That circular is there. I have looked at the money you're asking, and the money in the circular for SRC of 2012, tarehe 12, 2016. Hiyo pesa ni the same. There's no difference. So you are being underpaid. You are being underpaid and you're not going to allow. Mutakubali hiyo? Mutakubali hiyo? We are at the apex. Sisi Kenyatta, you are at the apex of healthcare system in Kenya. And the due respect must be given to you for the work that you do in this country to serve Kenyans. Kwa hivyo SRC, kama mnajua mnaweza kufanya kazi tarehe 28 kuanzia saa 6 usiku na tarehe 1 muingie Kenyatta muanze kazi. Lakini kufikia siku hiyo muwe mmetoa barua, pesa zinaingia wapi? Pesa. Sitakuwa na mengi, ni hayo tu.
Haya. So now tunaita Secretary General Bwana Arba Sinjero Kuvea naye aseme yake. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity.
Right, you've been listening into unionizable staff at the Kenyatta National Hospital who have issued a deadline of Friday this week for letters to be issued to them agreeing to their demands primarily related to salary increments, and they have warned that if those letters don't come through, they will take action. Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is holding a peace meeting with representatives living in the Mau region to discuss a lasting solution to the ongoing land conflict that has left many homeless. Matiang'i is accompanied by his counterparts Keriako Tobiko of Environment, Farida Karoni of Lands and Energy CS Charles Keter. The Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea is also present at the meeting. Ruth Samwe now joins us live from Naivasha. Ruth, what else can you tell us at this point?
Well, Smriti, as we are speaking, I can see so far the Interior CS Fred Matiang'i has been holding 2 meetings, and the second one they just finished the second meeting, and I think they are about to address the media. But what I can tell you so far is that the Interior CS Fred Matiang'i was meeting community leaders from the Mau region, and some of they had representatives from both regions, both community leaders, women and youth leaders were also present, as also church leaders were also present in the meeting. And the reason as to why they are holding these peace meetings is because of the ongoing land conflict that has been going on in the Mau region for some time right now. And remember sometime last week, one person was killed because of the conflict that was caused because of the conflict that came out because of the new beacons that were erected by members of the Kenya Forest Service. So some members of those community thought that, it was time to move out from the areas that had been the borderline the new borderline that had been put up. But the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea confirmed, and he said that Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea said that the reason as to why those new beacons were put up was so that they could be able to review the borderlines that were put up since 1997, and they will start reviewing those lands that were bought and distributed and given as settlement land. So that is why those borderlines were put up. So we are going to inform you what will come out of this meeting. So I can see, Fred Matiang'i is about to address us, and he has also been accompanied by Lands CS Farida Karone and Environment CS Keriako Tobiko, as well as Charles from the Energy Department. So we'll bring you more on what will happen. Back to you, Smriti.
All right, coming to us live from Naivasha, NTV's Ruth Samwe. Now it is official, the World Athletics Continental Gold Tour final leg set for Nairobi will continue as planned. The Kipkeino Classic was launched earlier today at Riyadh House, where the CS for Sports, that's Amina Mohammed, recognized the role that the two-time Olympic gold medalist Kipchoge Keino has played in the country. NTV will be airing the event live on the 4th of October. Our sports reporter Ida Waringa brings us more details. Ida.
Indeed, Smriti, as you have put it, it is official. The World Athletics Continental Tour is coming to Nairobi, and that will be on October 3rd. So the event concluded just a bit ago. It was here at Riyadh House, and the main event, or the competition, will be happening right across the road. That will be at Nyayo National Stadium on that Saturday, October 3rd. As you put it as well, NTV will have exclusive and free-to-air rights. So, in presence were Cabinet Secretary of Sports, Culture and Heritage. We are talking about Dr. Ambassador Amina Mohammed. Athletics Kenya President Jackson Tuwei was also present, as was the athletics legend himself, the man up to which this event has been named. We are talking about Dr. Kipchoge Keino, and the meet director, that being Barnabas Korir as well, were all on stage, gave gave a lot of thoughts and insights into just how important sports is in marketing this country. Don't forget, Smriti, that this will be a global event. It has already taken place in quite a few cities. And we had said earlier on that the Nairobi event was the one that was supposed to start this off. But of course, with COVID-19 effects and whatnot, it is closing it off. So lots of lessons to be learned so far from the cities that have hosted this. We're talking some of the most global elite tournaments in Tokyo, Ostrava, Austria, and what have you. But let's have a look and hear in terms of what some of the relevant stakeholders had to say.
It's therefore with great pride, ladies and gentlemen, that I launch the Keep Kano Classic to be held at the Nyayo National Stadium on the 3rd of October this year, named after our trailblazing legend, Dr. Kipchoge Keino. The Keep Kano Classic, expected to convene more than 150 elite competitors, is yet another huge leap in appreciating Kenya's ability to host mega sports events.
Also say that the professional list of all athletes have already been done, and we are going to release the list from tomorrow so that you know who will be coming and from where and how many athletes will be there. But since there are still entries that are being done, we will close the entries on on Friday, 25th of this month, so that we can then communicate to all the athletes and everybody else who will be coming. And so we'll be releasing this information immediately after this tomorrow.
Jackson Tuwei, the Athletics Kenya president, and as you've heard, the list of athletes that will be taking part in this continental showpiece will be released tomorrow. And that's pretty much it from here, Smriti. It's back to you in studio, and of course, much more in our report in subsequent segments.
Ida, thanks very much. It has indeed been a busy morning on NTV this morning related to sports, and we're going to get busier and busier. Make sure that you stay tuned because all the action is right here on NTV. All right, elsewhere now, there is an urgent need for more rangers to be deployed in all gazetted forests. According to the Kenya Forest Service, the country has slightly over 2,000 rangers, but that is an insufficient number to protect the huge hectares.
Conserving the country's forests is key in ensuring desired forest cover is achieved, but there is inadequate protection of our green spaces.
The recommended ratio is 1 ranger to 400 hectares. But if you look at it now, we have slightly over 2,000 rangers, if I'm not wrong. And the gazetted forest area is way beyond. If you compare the ratio, it's like 1 ranger to more than 1,000 hectares. That is too much.
In May this year, more than 4,000 hectares of vegetation were destroyed at the Tsavo East National Park as a fierce fire engulfed the area. And just a month later, 180 hectares of land in the same area were consumed by a fire in a suspected case of arson. But despite this, the Kenya Forest Service says the destruction of forests has declined.
The community have really been helpful in identifying hotspots where illegal activities take place, and even giving information in identifying who are these people.
Meanwhile, Environment Cabinet Secretary Kariako Tobiko has reiterated his commitment to repossess public land that has been encroached on in the country. He says his ministry is focused on protecting major water towers in the country. The ministry attributes a resumption of annual rainfall to the recovery of part of the Mau forest.
Mvua imekuwa ikinyesha mpaka wa sasa. Saa hii mto Amalo, mto Mara imefurika, imevunja rekodi. Hata unaona zimebeba hizo ngakata. Na Mau inapatia maji mpaka Kajiado.
The rains have, however, been a double-edged sword, as they have left hundreds of families displaced in their wake. Gena Kirori, NTV.
All right, time for a breather on NTV at 1. More when we return.
Mbolea za Mavuno Fertilizers zimetengenezwa mahususi kusaidia udongo na mimea. Zimetengenezwa kwa taaluma ya hali ya juu ya kisayansi. Zaidi ya wakulima 500,000 nchini wanaweza kupata mbolea hizi kwa bei nafuu. Zinapatikana katika maduka ya kuuza pembejeo kwa viwango vya kilo 1 hadi kilo 50. Wakulima ambao wametumia mbolea za Mavuno Fertilizers wamepata ongezeko la mazao yao kwa 30%. Wasiliana nasi leo kwa simu ili kujua mengi kuhusu namna mbolea za mavuno zinavyosaidia kuongeza uzalishaji chakula nchini.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more. Like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola. Taste the simple joys.
Devki Steel Mills have provided quality building material with the widest range of associated steel products over the last 3 decades. Look for the Devki mark on a widest selling reinforcement, twisted and TMT rebars, which are KBS certified and have the diamond mark of quality. Devki Steel, Kenya's most trusted steel company.
When you buy a bar of Cadbury Dairy Milk chocolate, you can help change the story. That's because we will use part of the proceeds to donate milk to less fortunate children across our beautiful country. Let us come together and show the generous spirit that is inside of all of us. Cadbury Dairy Milk. There's a glass and a half in everyone.
Anachikile shop iko pale hivi ya M-Pesa. Mimi ndo shop atatuchapelea usiku. Maze pole amekuwa missing. Nimemtafuta kila mahali simuoni.
Paul ni mteja.
Simekwambia story ni serious manzi.
Hajezi masimu. Wewe ni mwizi. Don't you dare. After Kenya nimekuona ukifanya na ule mwanaume, I think na qualify pia kukuita cheat. But kuhusu kutoambia Richard sioni kantaweza.
Kama unataka mbocha kwa nyamaze, lazima nyamazishwe.
Okay, tutamnyamazishaje?
Joy, this is Paul.
Welcome back to NTV at 1. Let's take you back to Naivasha now, where we can listen in to Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i speaking. He is in Naivasha discussing issues related to security in the Mau region.
Kenyans and see where there are challenges that need to be sorted out on the ground, and we will resolve them. If they're in the environment, our Minister for Environment will be there. The bulk of the work is going to be done by the Minister of Lands. My sister and colleague Farida Karone will be available, and we are going to focus on this so that we can keep the deadline we were given by His Excellency the President to do this by Jamhuri Day, as it was. So we wish everyone the best. We'll give it our best, and we hope that our leaders who are here today will equally go forward with that positive attitude to ensure that we keep our people together, we keep our community safe and peaceful, for our own sake, the sake of our children, and the sake of the wonderful people that God has given us to live with and lead. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best. Yeah.
All right, more on the outcome of that meeting from Ruth Sarmoe in our subsequent bulletins. Now, Kilimani killing suspect Chris Obure has been released on a 2 million shilling cash bail and 2 sureties of the same amount. Obure was charged alongside his bodyguard Robert Bodo with the murder of Kevin Omwenga. His bodyguard Robert Bodo has been released on a cash bail of 500,000 shillings and 2 sureties of the same amount. Justice Jesse Lesit has ordered them not to contact the victim's family or any of the witnesses in the case. Before they are released, they are also required to file in court an affidavit showing where they will reside as the case is ongoing. They've also been directed to deposit their travel documents in court. Judge Lesit has ordered them to never again handle any firearms until the case is heard and determined. Omwenga was shot dead in his apartment in Kilimani on the 21st of August, allegedly by Bodo, who is said to have used Obure's gun. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture is calling upon the National Assembly and the Senate to demand an audit report on the Kenya Tea Development Agency, alleging possible misappropriation of farmers' earnings. Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya argues that tea auctioning has provided an avenue through which farmers' proceeds have been stolen to benefit a few individuals in the tea sector. This comes even as the ministry seeks to ramp up support for the tea regulations, which has elicited mixed reactions over the way forward for the sector, whose marketed production stood at 459,000 tonnes in 2019. Kenya's tea export in 2019 was valued at 139 billion shillings.
Tunajua kuna pesa ambaye haiko kwa vitabu ya KTDA ambayo ina earn KTDA 200 million every month. Tuko na insider information na wakati investigations itaanza hiyo mambo itajulikana. Ndio tunasema huko mbunge mpitishe resolution ya kwamba tufanye ile inaitwa forensic audit ya KTDA. Hakuna njia nyingine tutaweza kujua ile uchafu iko huko ndani.
All the gazetted manufacturers and producers who import goods under the East African Community Duty Remission Scheme will now be required to lodge their applications online. This follows efforts by the National Treasury, the Kenya Trade Network Agency, KenTrade, and the Kenya Revenue Authority to automate the application and approval process of the duty remission through the National Electronic Single Window System. The automation is not only designed to make the application process easier, but also to facilitate exchange of information across various state agencies in a bid to seal revenue leakages suffered by the taxman. Right, some international news now, and Ivory Coast's main presidential election challenger and a group of opposition parties have called for a civil disobedience campaign to stop President Alassane Ouattara's bid for a third term on October 31st. The election is seen as one of the biggest tests of the stability of the West African nation since a disputed vote led to a brief civil war in 2010-2011. Ivory Coast's Constitutional Council has cleared Ouattara, former President Henri Konan Bedi, and 2 other candidates to contest the vote. The opposition, led by Bedi and Gbagbo, led protests against Ouattara, which has so far led to 15 people losing their lives. The leaders have threatened to continue with the protests until Ouattara steps down from the presidential race. Transport in some parts of Mauritania had to be altered due to extreme flooding. Water filled the streets of Nukchot after torrential overnight rains, leaving entire neighborhoods isolated and halting cars on the roads. Drivers are struggling to pick up clients, and informal sector workers have resigned themselves to staying at home due to the lack of transportation. Mauritania's extreme vulnerability to drought and shifting rainfall patterns is ratcheting up problems of poverty and population pressure. All right, some sports news now, and Andrea Pirlo got his coaching career off to a winning start as Juventus launched their bid for a 10th consecutive league title with a 3-0 win over Sampdoria on Sunday. Swedish debutant into Paris in the race leader's yellow jersey at just 21 years old. Pogacar became the Tour's youngest. Coming your way later this evening at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. In the meantime, have yourselves a great day and stay safe.
This is NTV.